The opinions and views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the guests and do not represent the position of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission ICPC. ICPC therefore assumes no responsibility for any errors emanating from the information or advisory contained in the content provided.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ethicspod. Ethicspod is a podcast owned by the ICPC, and we are here to talk about corruption issues, dive corruption issues in our day-to-day lives, and make sure that we bring it to the most relatable form that you can relate to. And I'm not here alone. My name is Damilola, and I'm here with our millennial daddy, Ola. Say hi, Ola.
Hello, everybody. You forgot to say delectable Danny. We're
Yes. I'm still getting used to that name. I really like it, by the way. Delectable Dami. It goes with my name a lot.
Go and change your Instagram handle and your Twitter handle.
Delectable Dami. I think I'll think about it.
By the way, people, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and follow us everywhere. Ethicspod and also ICPC Nigeria. We'll have so many interesting things for you. So, Dami, what's been happening? What's interesting?
Man, a lot has been happening. You cannot be in Nigeria and not have like 50 things happening to you at the same time.
At the same time,
yeah. I'm telling you.
How did you get to work? With that protest, there was some.
Oh
protest.
My God! If I feel like I can write a book on how stressful that week was for me, because I came out of my house the first day because I was like, oh, will this hold? Will this not hold? And everything, and I got into the middle of the traffic and the whole violence and everything, and it was crazy.
Wow.
I almost started regretting, like, why did I leave my house? I should have just stayed at home. Like, seriously, it was so. And the other day where I tried to be a good, worker. Like, I must go to work. I'm very diligent. I was literally the only person on the road. Everywhere was like dead silence.
You know the funniest thing about that was, this African parent mentality.
Mm-hmm.
My mother called me. She said it in Yoruba, my native dialect. Like, it's the person that has life that can collect query. That can collect query. Like if you stay at home, they will give you query because you are alive.
I'm telling you, that's the truth.
But really, I think the learning point there for me, and we've said this time and time again, is voice and participation. You're allowed to express yourself.
Definitely.
It must not deteriorate into damaging things. And did you see, I saw a clip of people sitting on a traffic light and they were sawing at it, and I'm like,
sitting?
What? They climbed up on it.
Are you serious?
I'm like, what are you going to do with a traffic light? And then shortly I saw one picture. Abah had kept traffic lights in all corners.
Did you see the one of somebody who like uprooted a police signboard? I think signpost or something. I don't understand. It was so crazy that week, and I was just wondering what exactly is going on. I don't know. It felt like, what's the entire purpose of the protest felt like it was being hijacked, and I was like, what exactly is going on? People are just protesting for good governance, and it's becoming something else. There's so much violence. In fact, when I went to church, there was a woman who gave a very emotional testimony about how she was almost in the heat. You know how African mothers can be very dramatic, and she was so dramatic about how they were snatching people's bags and everything. I was like, man, thank God for life.
This one that we're just sending straight to African mothers. I know they do.
I know they did too, because I'll receive query too from my own mother.
but finally, somebody also raised this valid point. It was on social media about how some protesters went into a library and damaged things. Somebody went away with a keyboard. Somebody with monitor. Crucially, no book was touched. I'm not saying anything. No, I'm only saying.
Oh my God! No single book was touched. They just picked up the keyboard and
just picked up the things.
God will help us.
But anyway, it's what it is. Hopefully, and people would learn how to express themselves without being violent.
Exactly.
In the end, both our leaders and we that are governed, we're all working towards the same goal, which is a corruption-free society.
Nigeria.
And people just want to be prosperous. People want to be able to live their daily life. So, other than that, what is happening this episode? Delectable. I like that name.
Delectable Dam. I like it too. Honestly, it's very brilliant. I never thought I would like your millennial ideas because they seem like old school, but I think I'll take this one. I think it works.
People are home. Me too, I'm collecting strays.
Yes, please, you're old millennials. Gen Zs are the happening thing
It's
now.
all right. I'll take it on the chain. Water off a duck's back. So today, we're going to be discussing another very prevalent, very strong topic.
Strong and relatable. I feel like everybody has a story on this topic.
Will you do my assignments for me today or tomorrow? I'll give you something. But it's not right.
What will you do?
I'll just give you something, Just scratch my back.
I scratch yours.
And and that's one of these very, that's one of the things that people say to justify that word bribe.
Exactly. It's always so subtle. Like, it just feels like, no, it's not bribe now. I'm just giving them something for them to do something for me. Appreciation.
Yes.
Exactly. Just backhand.
Anyways, viewers, listeners, wherever you are all around the world, we're going to be, diving into that topic shortly. We're not going to be doing it by ourselves because we need somebody, who understands what is going on.
Exactly.
So we'll be unveiling that guest shortly. Enjoy. Now, our guest today is a celebrity. He's a celebrity on Elon Musk's app.
Yes, Twitter. Now
X, he's famous for his intellectual bass to every uncouth boss you throw at him. He's a former DG of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms. He's the one, the only, Dr. Abah.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Us,
live and in the flesh.
Yes.
It's amazing to have you
in
here.
The flesh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us, sir. And speaking of, I heard when you talked about intellectual bars to the bulls and everything. So I'm really curious, how do you manage to deal with the Twitter audience? Like, how do you, Twitter life is something else. Like, if you are not strong, you cannot stand. So, and you're always just there, giving back to back. If you come, you collect. So soft, how do you do it?
Soft.
Like, when somebody just give you soft but it's hot.
I think it's a realization. It's a number of things, actually. It's a realization that a number of people are angry, deservedly so. Some of us have lived in a country that at least gave us decent world-class education with which we can compete with anybody in the world. A number of young people haven't had that. They haven't had some of the opportunities we've had. And so they have a certain anger, particularly against people of my generation and above. And so, unfortunately, because of the weakness in the education system, they cannot express that frustration without abuse and anger. Because, when we're growing up, we're taught about debates and, discussions and debate, and nobody has to win. Everybody learns from each other. But it's moved on from somebody must win. Somebody must, it's either good or bad. So sometimes I understand that, and so I don't respond with anger. I try to show the person they are being ridiculous without abusing them back.
Softly.
And sometimes you say, please help me manage this.
Just manage it.
And another thing, I think it's like you said, the way you interact with them. I saw not quite long ago that you tweeted and said, you're going on an interview with ICPC, and if people don't see you and all that, and there's this way, it rubs off. But that aside, right? More importantly, we are discussing anti-corruption issues here. We're trying to make a difference, and that is why people like you are here to share your experience. Now, I mentioned that you were once the DJ of public service reforms.
Yeah.
right now, one of the epidemics that we are having to deal with is bribery. Give us a definition as basic and as understandable as possible of that word bribery.
I would say is inducing a public servant to use their position to the advantage of the person making the offer, whether or not that person deserves what it is they're supposed to get. So you want to, there's a procurement that should be transparently done. You want me to give you that contract, whether or not you have the best quality or the lowest price. And then so you want to induce me to give you what you may not be entitled to, but what is even worse is what you may actually get if you didn't bribe at all. If you were sure of your quality and your
Abilities.
quotes, why would you need to bribe anyone? So I think that's what it is, just inducing people. Sometimes it's out of malice. Sometimes if you're not careful as a public servant, somebody actually wants to set you up and you don't know. At other times, it's because that's what people are used to. And so one of the very early impressions I had to give when I was DG is Oga doesn't collect. So don't even bother because I think someone was tried to make me a silly offer, and I had to call my police orderly, pretended I didn't quite hear what he said, and then asked him, "Oh, please repeat what you said." And then he said it, and then I asked my orderly to arrest him for attempting to bribe a public official. That was when there was a mad commotion in my office, all sorts of begging. That was when I realized that he had seen everybody else before he got to my own office. And everybody was now returning their own and saying, "Oh, sorry, sir." So at least that gave the impression, oh, God doesn't collect, so don't even offer.
Right. So, but you did say public servants a couple of times, and I want to clarify that. I want you to clarify it. Is it peculiar to public servants, or it exists in other forms and natures in the country?
I think it's a reflection of our society. It's not only public servants. I used to say that there's a distinction between when people are dealing with public money and when they're dealing with, say, communal money. And then I realized that people were also chopping money even in churches and mosques. People were chopping money in communities. The community would donate money to maybe build a borehole or something, and somebody will still. So it's not peculiar to the public service. It's more apparent in the public service because usually you want the public servant to give you something, right? And that thing could be a driver's license, it could be a passport, it could be an ID card, it could be some sort of letter. So you want something from them, which may not be the case like in private life or in churches and mosques, but the underlying mentality is the same.
Okay. All right, sir. So I'm still speaking on corruption because bribery is a form of corruption. You did your PhD thesis on anti-corruption. So I want to ask, do you think that the corruption level now in Nigeria is much higher than when you were still in government?
It's difficult to say without some empirical information. And that's why I'm very happy that because a lot of corruption is measured by perception. Okay, so if you see the Transparency International, it's a corruption perception index. Okay, so you find that in places where people talk about corruption a lot, the perception of corruption may be actually higher than the actual incidence of corruption. So there was one case where somebody was asking about bribery, and he asked the question about, have you actually been offered a bribe in the last 1 year? He asked that question in the UK. It was something like maybe 12%. Asked the same question in Turkey. It was about 60 something percent in terms of perception. But the question as to whether you yourself have actually ever been offered a bribe, the results were exactly the same across the two countries. And that's why what ICPC is doing is very good, which is to actually have its own perception, its own corruption measure that doesn't rely only on perception. Right? So it's difficult to say. I don't think it's very different. I think, to my mind, we're still at the basics when it comes to fighting corruption. I actually often say that we're not yet fighting corruption. What we're fighting at the moment is impunity. The ability to just take the money and not care what happens. I think that has changed. That has improved. The impunity is no longer as bad as it was a few years ago. I think people are at least a bit more careful now. Yeah.
Right. So now you've brought in another variable. I mean, impunity. Now, I'm not going to ask you how old you are because you make
I can tell you, I'm 59.
No, you make it clear to us on X that you're a baby boy. So, but more importantly, I mean, you've been around for quite a while.
Just say I'm old.
How would you say the evolution of bribery? Like, there must have been a starting point,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, we're saying, okay, we're trying to reduce it. Is it getting worse? But what's that evolution? Where essentially did it come in from?
I think bribery has always been there, and even if you go back to the time just before and after independence, there were all sorts of accusations of people stealing money and living beyond their means, even right from the early 60s. What I think happened is that in the mid 80s, a fundamental change happened. And that fundamental change is when a president felt that it was okay to lie to citizens. And he became famous for it. People called him Maradona for his ability to deceive. And the lines between good and bad became blurred. The lines between good and evil became blurred. And so there was an attack on our value system from, I think, the mid-80s, which we are still suffering from today. And that attack on our value systems started to see things like parents paying for people to write jam for their children, the boys in the universities sorting lecturers, the girls sorting the lecturers with their bodies, some of the boys joining calls and threatening lecturers, and then people coming out, and the beauty that was NYSC. You want to go to a different part of the country you've never been to before, experience a new culture, maybe even meet the woman you're going to marry in future, or the man you're going to marry. People started changing that, where you are from Lagos, you went to Unilag, somehow you serve in Lagos, and then people got into the public sector. They were selling slots, allegedly, where you buy a slot to enter the public service. So that person that has had his WAEC and JAMB written for him or her has sorted their way through school, has got their posting to NYC somewhere, has bought a slot, or been taking advantage of maybe their dad's connection. How would that person behave when he gets into the public sector? That's what you need to think about, because this is what they've known. They've always cheated the system. So when you get into the public service, of course, it will be surprising if that person doesn't then promote bribery, corruption, and bad behavior. So I think it is that switch in the mid 80s that led to corruption now being ingrained in the way we do things. Which generation? We're the same generation. Which generation is it? Which generation is your own?
Gen Z, sir.
Gen Z.
Zs.
I think the millennials and the Gen Zs got the worst deal, right? Because, like I said, at least regardless of everything that happened, we got a good education. And I say to people, the reason why I'm not on a building site carrying pongpong is because I'm educated. I have a good education. I only went to, I couldn't make it into UNN. For Unilag, I had to do A levels, but me, I wrote JAM. So it was only Unical that took me. Oh, and by the way, because I was 15 then, they won't allow anybody under the age of 16. So those of us that were 15, myself, Ruben Abati, Ellis Ebon, who's the chief legal officer of AGIP, Dr. Aloy Chife, who's also on Twitter, we're all 15. So it was Unical that took us before the age of 16. So, but I went to Unical. I don't think you call it part of the top 6 or 7, but today I'm a visiting fellow at Oxford. Right. I gave the Africa Innovate speech at MIT last year, following in the footsteps of the president of Mauritius and Dr. Bribery Wahala from my humble Unical. So at least we had an education. Yeah. The Gen Zs and the millennials, I think, have been denied that. I was just asking the other day why, because when we were in school, there was nothing like level. It was year 1, year 2, year 3, and then you graduate final year. So I was asking, when did they start using 100 level, 200 level? And I was thinking maybe it's because you can be on 100 level for 3 years. So you can't be using year 3 because you could be in year 3 at 100 level. So that's what's happened to
the education system.
Yeah.
Now, going back to your tenure as the DG, again, this is something I gleaned from your page. You often seem like you don't want to hold public office anymore. And the question I see that gets thrown at you is, if people that are supposed to be beacons of hope and change are refusing to go into that situation again, then where is the hope for people who actually want change? So how do you reconcile you trying to make change but not wanting to go back into that system?
It's a very good question, but let me answer it in this way. There are 230 million of us. Not be only me waka come. And those of us who have had the privilege, because that's what I call it a privilege of serving your country. Not everybody gets an opportunity to do so. You see majority of people who would live their entire lives without an opportunity to actually exercise the power of the states and serve their country. So if you've ever had the opportunity to do so, for me, it's a fantastic privilege. So I've done 1 year of NYSC. I've done 4 years as DG. That's 5 years out of my life of how many? And then apart from that, I continue to contribute. I continue to work for, I continue to be on several committees and do pro bono work and, do other things. And so I don't think I have to be in government to do the things I do. That is not to say that I will never work in government again. No, I'm not saying that. But I earned the least I had earned in the previous 25 years when I worked for government. I took a 90% pay cut to come and be DG. Okay. So because of that, I spent my entire savings over the last 4 years. In fact, in the last year, it was my wife that was subsidizing my government posts. So the children said, "Oga, why would you go back?" I couldn't answer. So I need to recover first from that one. Then if there's another opportunity in future, of course. But additionally, if I see something that is worth making that sacrifice for, okay, because I'm not in it for money, I'm not in it for power, I'm not in it for fame, right? But if a president says there is this particular problem, can you come and fix it? You have my total backing. Then of course, yeah, I'll think about it differently. But it's not because I want to be DG again. I've been there, done that. It's not because I want to be minister. It makes me a politician. I'll then have to deliver my state. I don't want all that stuff. So, but if there's something I can do that can make a difference in the country and to people's lives, and I can do it for a set period of time, do it, achieve that thing, and move away, then yes, I'll be happy to consider it.
All right, sir. So, speaking on this pay cut difference, how were you able? What standards did you hold yourself by? Because you said it was like a leap downwards in the government sector. So, how were you able to manage? And you talked about somebody offering you bribe at some point or bringing a ridiculous offer of corruption. How did you manage and say, okay, despite that this is a downward leap, I will still maintain my standards? What was it for you?
Okay, so first of all, when you get the letter appointing you DG, it's only like 2 paragraphs. Okay, the SGF will write, I am writing to convey the approval of Mr. President for your appointment as DG of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms. You shall hold the office for a tenure of 4 years starting from 29th August 2013 in my own case. Your salary shall be according to the consolidated salary scale. Please accept my congratulations. That's all. Now, because of the sort of secrecy around the thing, nobody actually knew how much a DG earns. I kept asking, how much is the salary of a DG? Sometimes even the DGs don't know. The ones in juicy agencies that are not dependent on the salary.
Right.
You understand? So nobody knew. Then I now realized that, apart from that, you need to register on the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System, IPS. And that takes 3 months before your salary starts to come. So when the salary eventually came, and I saw that it was 895,000, after I'd worked for my life for how many years, I was being paid in pounds abroad, there was then a crisis meeting with Madam.
Of course.
So, I mean, you've mentioned that, and what for me jumps out straight away is you were not satisfied with that. When I say not satisfied, doesn't mean you wanted more from that place because maybe they didn't have to give, but people try to justify taking a bribe because
Not earning enough. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they need a livelihood, but
Yeah.
then they accept that, look, now when man they work,
They chop.
man go chop.
Yeah. It's a good point. And before now I used to say, no, it's not an excuse. Nobody takes a job not knowing how much it pays. And then it happened to me. I took a job not knowing how much it pays. Right? But at the same time, it's not an excuse. The fact that, because if poverty was the reason why people are corrupt, then the rich will not be corrupt. Right? The rich will not be, because they are not poor. So it's the intellectual argument as to whether what is the motivation for corruption. Is it need? So you're talking about the 70,000 salary, which can't even pay his transport to work. And so is it need? Or is it greed? Like in the rich man that wants to steal because he wants to run for governor and all that. So is it greed? Or is it opportunity? It's probably a combination of the three, but if you asked me to choose one, I would say it's opportunity. If there's an opportunity, people will take it. Most people, well, not most people, many people will take it. And the reason why, and it doesn't matter the environment, if your systems are lax, just like the UK members of parliament, it's just that in the UK they call it expenses scandal. In Nigeria we call it corruption, right? So, but they fiddle their expenses because the opportunity was there, and then they then had to tighten that system to make it more difficult for them to do. So again, it's why the system studies work that ICPC does is so important. It's not glamorous, right? The glamorous thing is catch the big politician, put them in handcuff, take picture. That's the glamorous one. But the one of actually constantly tightening the system to constrain those opportunities for people to even be tempted is not celebrated enough, and is not glamorous, but is of vital importance. So that's what I would say to that. I think, and in addition to that, just to answer your question, no, it's not enough to say, oh, because I'm earning 70,000, that's why I took a bribe. No, you should also. One of the things my mom told me when I was going into government, when I was telling her, Mama, I'm not going to take the appointment, so I don't know I'm going to survive. She said to me, the money, she was a public servant as well, civil servant actually. She retired from what used to be Ministry of Commerce, that is now Trade and Investment. And my dad retired from Radio Nigeria. And what my mom told me was, look, if you have a brain, the money you make from government will not be while you're in government, it will be when you leave. Right? And so now, if it wasn't for ICPC and I was to charge you for my time for coming here, you need to go and take a loan to pay it. So there's also pedigree, family background. Again, remember the son of whom you are. So if your parents have lived a life of integrity, they can answer any knock and say, who is it? Then that should also condition you, even if the temptation is there.
Okay, sir. So in your own opinion, what do you think is a critical step that can be taken in Nigeria to reduce corruption, bribery, for example? A practical step that you think that can be taken to reduce it?
Or steps.
Okay. First of all, I think we need a new deal in this country. By a new deal, I mean we need to have a dialogue about the kind of country we want and what we're willing to do to get that kind of country. And once we've had that discussion, we then codify it into a new constitution. That's what I think we need to do. The reason why that is important is because the things that people pay a bribe for are things they should get as a matter of course. But because there is no Bill of Rights, you beg, even for things that are your entitlement. You beg and you bribe. So I was fortunate enough to join the faculty at Oxford University last year to train the government of Brazil that came in January 2023. And that's when I realized that healthcare is a justiciable right in Brazil. You have a right to be treated when you are ill. You have a right to drugs. You don't pay for drugs. It's not like they're doing you a favor. It's your constitutional right. And your right doesn't just end at getting the drugs. It's saying, I want the Panadol with the packet. I don't want Emzor sachet. And they must give you the one you want. You have a right to education. If you cannot get educated, you sue the government. They'll pay you huge compensation. So every Brazilian has those rights, right? And they have a right to review their constitution every 20 years. Their constitution is not forever. It actually has an end date. So the same thing with the US. There's a Bill of Rights. Before you stop any American on the street, he'll tell you, my First Amendment right, freedom of speech. My Second Amendment right, freedom to bear arms. My Fifth Amendment right, freedom not to incriminate myself. Everybody knows it. So we need to have a new deal where every Nigerian knows what they are entitled to and knows that in order to get this thing, is actually my right. I don't have to bribe.
Is there a relationship, therefore, between knowledge, literacy, and this bribery and corruption thing?
There probably is, but I think everybody suffers it equally. Both the educated and uneducated, I think suffer it equally. But I'll tell you something you might find interesting. When I was DJ, I did a survey with the National Bureau of Statistics around the entire country, all the wards of this country. And I was asking people, okay, what are your views on this? What are your views on that? And one of the things I asked about was the police. What are your views about the police? Believe it or not, 70% of people in the rural areas said the police were doing a wonderful job.
In Nigeria?
In Nigeria here. They are completely transparent. They help us because the 20 naira thing is city thing. But because the people in the city have the loudest voice, they are the ones on social media, they make up. But don't forget that the policeman in the village is the one settling husband and wife quarrel, is the one settling land disputes, is the one that a parent to go and report a child to that this one wants to join a cult, is the policeman.
Right.
So you get these completely different views of the same situation and the same person. So, and of course, there's the issue of opportunity. Like I said, nobody has 200 naira in the village to give any policeman. So the opportunity is not even there.
Yes.
You understand? But I think everybody suffers it equally. But it's just that mentality where it breaks your heart to see a young person believe that they can never get a job without connections. That's what they hold very, very dearly to it. So when I say to them, but I became DJ, I didn't know anybody. I had no godfather, nothing. I just went to a seminar at the Hilton where the newly appointed head of service was. And I said, they said, should anybody that has any questions? So I raised up my hands and I said, head of service, congratulations on your appointment. I had actually written a letter to you as a Nigerian. But since you are here and I have not yet posted the letter, I'll just tell you what's in the letter. He said, okay, go ahead. I said, I'm just asking, are you going to be a different head of service or are you just going to be the same ones that we've had all the time? Are you actually going to do anything different or will you just take the money like everybody else? And he said, it's my first day in the job. Give me 3 months. I'll give you an answer. I said, okay. And when you give me an answer, please don't tell me it depends. Because that's the problem with Nigeria. Everything depends. Right? So I said, don't tell me it depends. Just tell me yes or no whether you're going to be a better person. And he said, okay, give me 3 months and I'll give you a straight answer whether I'm going to do the same as everybody else or not. And I left and went on holidays to the US. For the first time, I went on holidays without my laptop. I then got to the Hilton in San Francisco. There was a laptop there. I was, let me even check my emails. Then it was hundreds of emails. Oh, they are looking for you. They are looking for you. Who? Oh, send your CV. Send your CV. They want to make you DJ. DJ of where? Then the next email will be, don't even bother sending your CV. We'll copy it from LinkedIn. I told my wife, this must be a 419 thing, I got back to Nigeria. I heard that a number of people had spent tens of millions lobbying for the position. I told her, didn't I tell you it's a 419 thing? It turns out that it was that man I challenged at the Hilton that said, there's one young man that challenged me at the Hilton. Go and look for him. That's the kind of person we want as DJ. I didn't know him from Adam.
Right.
But when you tell a young person, they'll say, that was that time. I say,
yeah.
it's not long ago. It's not long ago that it happened.
So this is the thing. Now you mentioned ICPC. I mean, as one of those anti-corruption agencies, anti-graft agencies, but this is beyond ICPC now and EFCC and police. What do you think anti-corruption agencies need to do to mitigate this problem? Because we are famous, or I mean, we like to speak about problems.
Yes.
Well, you have to also offer
Solutions.
practicable solutions.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think can be done?
It's a very good observation, because I was just coming from a planning meeting for one of our projects, and I was telling them that when I read a consultancy report, I can tell whether it was written by a Nigerian or not. And they said, oh yeah, the English. I said, no, it's not the English. The analysis of the problem will be wonderful. It will be the best analysis you can see. This is why this is wrong and this is why. But if you then ask, okay, so what do we then do about it? The answer is really, we don't know. Now only God will help us. That's how you know it was written by a Nigerian. So you're absolutely right that it's very important to focus on, okay, so then what? I think having studied anti-corruption as part of my PhD, I see two approaches. You see EFCC that has traditionally been led by policemen. Their approach is, your job is to catch the person and put them before the court. The court will decide whether the person is guilty or not, so they will catch the person. Traditionally, until recently, ICP has been led by retired judges. A judge will weigh both sides and say, okay, this evidence, will it stand up, this, that. Before you know it, he's been on his table for 2 years. The person has even moved on to another thing they haven't prosecuted. So the ratio of prosecution by ICPC was quite low. But ICPC felt, okay, it's important to educate the public. It's important to have all these anti-corruption clubs in schools, to have these anti-corruption and transparency units in ministries and all of that. Like I said, what is in the consciousness of the Nigerian is the big man in handcuffs. And usually their health will deteriorate after they catch them. And they will start using walking stick. And you know the deal. So that's what the Nigerian sees. So I think the good approach is a combination of the two. So you need to set an example of senior people to show that nobody is above the law. But you also need not forget all the other softer sides, like inculcating an anti-corruption culture in kids, educating the public about the dangers of corruption, some of the more intellectual work around how do you actually measure corruption without perception, which the Anti-Corruption Academy and the ICPC itself does. All of those things are quite important. One particular, or the most important of all these steps, it will be the constraining of opportunities. Don't even give me an opportunity to be tempted. Remove that opportunity, because the one thing with the public service is that there's a wide degree of discretion. Okay, so if you are driving now and using your phone while you're driving, don't ever do it. It's very dangerous. But if you're using your phone while you're driving and a road safety officer catches you, what options are available to that road safety officer? Let me hear from both of you. What options are available to that road safety officer that has caught you using your phone while driving?
Well, I mean, for me, and you're about to take over our podcast.
I know. I'm just asking you in your own experience, because as I can see you like this, you've done it before. Now the truth.
See now, you see what they are doing to me now. No, but look, I quite understand where you're coming from, but again, this is why we're having this discussion, which is essentially to change the minds of people from what they're used to. Hence why I asked you, that question. So the thing is, I'm trying not to answer your question.
The answers are straightforward. The road safety officer can either give you a warning, don't do it again, right? It's wrong to drive, or he can say, you're going to follow us to the office. I'm going to book you. Or they can just park and delay you and get you to think about
Life, yeah, for a couple
about your life for a
Yeah.
couple. So they have all that discretion,
Right.
right? So because the public service has a lot of discretion, you can use that discretion for corrupt purposes because it's within your power. Okay, it's within your power to let the person go. It's within your power to book the person, but it's also within your power for the road safety guy to enter your car and say, "So, Oga, what do you suggest we do now? So, how are we going to do this? Your case? So, how can you help us to help you?"
Right.
It's also within his power to do that, but so we need to constrain the opportunities for
that to happen.
that to happen.
So anyway,
Yeah.
okay. So I wanted to know: is it possible to really constrain these opportunities? Is it possible in every scenario of public office or to be able to constrain it? Because whether or not we like it, these opportunities will be there from time to time.
Okay, it's a very good question, and my answer would be, in most cases, yes, it is possible. And the reason why I would say so is this. I lived in the UK for 15 years before I moved back to Nigeria, and I still go back, several times a year. When I lived in the UK, there were policemen at certain corners. You just knew where they usually are. You're driving at 51 miles an hour in a 50-mile-an-hour road. You won't be surprised if you just hear one, somebody will just pull you over. Nobody does that now. You can be in the UK for 6 months and not see a single policeman, but jump one light, you get a ticket in the post tomorrow. Because there are cameras everywhere, they are being monitored. So you just get a ticket in the post. And this is the thing, this is the other aspect of it. It's also the consequences aspect. Because you get a ticket, if he's speeding, you must go to court. That one, you must go to court first, and then they may take your license.
Right.
Now, if it's just a minor traffic infraction, maybe you parked and you didn't pay, or you parked and paid, but your tire was just 1 inch out of your bay, then you get a ticket for £60. And that ticket will say, if you pay within 7 days, then you can pay £30
Right.
instead of 60. If that 14 days passes and you don't pay, that money becomes £120. The following week, it doubles to 240. The week after that, it doubles to 480. Until you just be home, somebody will just come and tow your car and auction it to pay that fine. You understand? So the consequences are clear. But what we have in Nigeria is a situation where, take me to court. The fine is 2,000 naira anyway. And the thing will be in court for 20 years. So that's the problem.
And you just gave us a practical example, and I want you to give us very shortly what has been, the most profound case of bribery in which you are well aware involved. Maybe somebody tried to offer you a bribe or asked for one.
I think your disposition matters a lot. So nobody ever offered me a big bribe. No, like I said, everyone knew that Oga doesn't collect.
What have asked for?
Again, like I said, your disposition matters.
Right.
Because a lot of these things that happen tend to happen with people that are politically inclined. I'm not. So when you start hearing, every DG should bring money so that we can pray for the president for the next election, nobody will come to me
To pray.
No, they won't even come and ask me because they will say, that one is Oyinbo, leave him alone.
Right. Right.
So usually the conversation stops whenever I enter the room. So I've never heard what they discussed. So I don't know. Sorry.
Well, it's been fantastic having you. One last question before we let you go. 82.9 kg, 83 kg. How have you managed that?
4 years.
Any
5
tips?
years,
Any
in fact.
tips?
20 years.
20
Oh
years.
my god, that is
Give me
amazing. So
tips.
please give us tips.
Okay, so I don't eat in the morning.
Oh, no breakfast.
No.
Oh.
Ethicspod,
Wow,
don't
that would
worry.
be hard.
Don't worry about the tips.
No, I mean I
Ethicspod.
still have hope. Go on, sir.
So I don't eat breakfast, and then everybody says that's really bad. So I no longer say I don't eat breakfast anymore. I now say I fast every morning. And they say, oh, that's really good. We want to be like you. Then I have a heavy lunch,
Okay.
and then I just have like a soup or a piece of chicken at night. I really only.
This
And then,
soft
Nothing
life.
like, okay,
This
as
soft
in,
life. This soft life.
and then I don't swallow.
This soft
At
life.
all?
Ah,
No.
Wow.
I worked out for 3 times a week, every week for 20 years.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm impressed.
It's been amazing having you here. Thank you so much for your time. Viewers, listeners, wherever you are around the world, I hope you have learned 1 or 2 things. And if you haven't, go to our page, subscribe, listen, ask questions,
Join the community.
join the community of people fighting hard to make a change. And as always,
It's all about the legit law.
it's all about the legit life. No one's God. Thank you very much for being with us. From I, Ola, and the delectable Dami,
Yes, of
and
course.
the esteemed
Yes.
82.9 kg. I'm very jealous of that. It's been a wonderful time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me.